Hello Booktube, this is Tag Tuesday, and for this Tag Tuesday I'm going to be doing the Booktube London Tag. This tag was created by Jim of Jim's Books, Reading and Stuff, and I'll leave a link to his original video in the show notes down below. Question number 1. The Time Machine by H.G. Wells is set in London. What is your favorite book about time travel? In general, I don't like time travel stories. But I do have a favorite manga, or two now, that do heavily feature time travel, or not necessarily heavily features time travel, but has time travel plots. The first is Fairy Tale, in which time travel has kind of plays two roles. One is a recurring villain named Ultir Milkovich. Her magical powers is over time. It's basically called Arc of Time, where she can control the time of inanimate objects. Basically like a crystal orb, or even though she does also control trees, so I guess it's non-animal or non-human time, and so she can speed them up, she can sort of accelerate their time or decelerate their time to decay or to heal. She can also pluck objects from multiple possible timelines to multiply her offensive capability or offensive weapons and that sort of thing. The other aspect of where time travel plays a role in Fairy Tale is that the dragon slayers, Natsu, Gajeel, Wendy, Sting, and Rogue, are actually from 400 years in Fairy Tale's past, during a great war between the dragons, in which human dragon slayers aided dragons friendly to humans to defeat the more anti-human dragons. In order to defeat the sort of the super dragon Acnologia, these young dragon slayers, they were all children at the time, were sent 400 years into the future to sort of lay the way to defeating Acnologia permanently. Anyway, so I really enjoyed it. So it's only like a little bit of time travel in Fairy Tale, and also there's some time travel in Eden Zero, Hiro Mishima's most recent work. He's also the creator of Fairy Tale, and in this case, one of the female protagonists, eventually she will develop the ether gear ability to travel. In a way, I think it's either back in time or to alternate timelines, and back into the past. But I haven't gotten there yet. So far, with what I have read, the time travel element is provided by a space organism called the chronophage. It's a massive, monstrous being that eats a planet's time. Basically, it will say a chronophage ate Earth. Basically, it would eat Earth's time from this present moment to a certain time into the past. So say if it ate 50 years of time, then the world would be restored to March 12th, not March 12th, this is April 12th of 1972. And if it ate 1200 years worth of time, well then it would that. So basically how the chronophage works. And in Eden Zero, the chronophage attacks twice in the rather early arcs. The first one had attacked the planet Norma, which ate 50 years of Norma's time. So pretty much the people who lived on Norma 50 years ago were restored to that moment, while people who weren't were if they didn't evacuate, were killed. And then it also attacked the planet Willis during a later arc in which it ate 1,200 years worth of Willis's time, which pretty much wiped that vile den of villainy off the star maps. And I will talk a bit more about Eden Zero Friday because I read those volumes of Eden Zero this Sunday. So a bit more of Eden Zero coming up. Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf is set in London. What book do you intend reading for next month's May of the Moderns? A book from the first half of the 20th century. I don't have much in the way of literature from the early 20th century. I think the only option I have would be either to read one of my Robert E. Howard collections, one of my Clark Ashton Smith collections, or I think The Master of Go by Yasunari Kawabata. So unless I, in the next few weeks, pick up something from before 1950, then it'll probably be Master of Go by Yasunari Kawabata. A Darker Shade of Magic by V E Schwab is set in 4 parallel Londons. Have you read any fantasy books set in our London or other Londons? I think I've read Kraken by China Miéville is set in modern London. I think that might be the only one. I know there's a number of fantasy novels and like contemporary fantasy novels and alternate history fantasy novels set in London, but I don't remember really reading them. I tend to prefer secondary world fantasies to more contemporary or urban fantasy or earth set fantasies, let's say that. Except for like in comic books, in which London does sometimes play a role. Charles Dickens wrote many books set in London. Which is your favorite Dickens novel? I guess it would be Bleak House. I was rather fond of that novel when I read it 15 years ago. I don't necessarily have the best reading relationship with Charles Dickens. I mean, I kind of liked A Tale of Two Cities and Christmas Carol, but I think I tried The Old Curiosity Shop or something, and I ended up bailing on that one, and I haven't really felt the desire to either reread or to read any more of Dickens's work in 13-14 years. So, anywho, Sherlock Holmes is a famous fictitious resident of London. What is your favorite murder mystery? I would go with Death on the Nile by Agatha Christie, or A Pocket Full of Rye, again by Agatha Christie. So when I was younger, I was a preteen and very early teen, I was really interested in mysteries. I had a few more authors than Agatha Christie. But after I turned 14 or 15, I pretty much dropped mysteries wholesale. And it wasn't until a few years ago that I reread Death on the Nile and really got back into Agatha Christie, and then started to collect more of her work in these big omnibus editions. So really, it's pretty much with me a mystery. It's all Agatha Christie all the time. And so Death on the Nile, Poirot is on vacation in Egypt when he basically meets a young couple who are on their honeymoon, who are being chased by the husband's former fiancée, and they hope to trick her, and they fail, and the young wife is murdered. Subsequently, 2 more people are murdered before Poirot figures out who did it. And then in A Pocket Full of Rye, an incredibly wealthy businessman named Rex Fortescue is poisoned, followed by the deaths of Mr. Fortescue's wife and maid. The death of the maid brings in Miss Marple, because Miss Marple trained the maid Gladys, and she basically, in a few days, figures out who did it. And oh boy, is she pissed in that one. Next one is A Paddington Bear by Michael Bond was named after Paddington Station in London. What is your favorite anthropomorphic animal in literature? You know, I've never read Paddington Bear. I've seen the cartoons, but I've never actually read the books. Anyway, so my favorite anthropomorphic animal in literature is... Let me go pull it out. Happy from Fairy Tale. Happy is Natsu Dragnell's Exceed cat companion, and he is a trip. A positive trip. Let's go put Fairy Tale back. That headboard bookcase is very convenient sometimes. But yeah, Happy is by far my favorite anthropomorphic animal character in literature. The Hogwarts Express departs from platform 9 3/4 at King's Cross Station. What was the last book you DNFed? The Opium War by Julia Lovell. So basically this past year. So at the end of last year, I had the idea to read no fiction in 2022. No fiction 2022. And I was going to start no fiction 2022 with the name tag TBR. Late last year, there was a book tag that made the rounds called the name tag, where participants would, taking the letters of their name, they would match that letter to the first letter of a book title. And I thought it would be cool to make a TBR out of it. And so I did. And so the name tag TBR was going to be the first 6 books, since I used my last name, of 2022. I got to number 2, which was The Opium War by Julia Lovell. It was a slog, and I also had a bit of a meltdown that week too, so I ended up bailing on it. I wasn't particularly happy with that bail because I was blaming the meltdown for it. So I decided that I was going to have a bail redemption. Basically, when I reread the books I've bailed on, or DNFed, I call them bail redemptions. It is awesome when there's a bail redemption achieved, but usually it's a bail redemption rejection. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to bail redeem the Opium War. And so I started it on Saturday, and it was a slog. It is nowhere near as good as Lovell's more recent Maoism, A Global History. And I just wasn't feeling it. It was just, I grew bored, and I decided to DNF, or bail on it. So when I talk about so I'll talk a bit more about this on Friday because with weekly reads, because of course, yeah, it kind of works into this week's weekly reads. So yeah, I'll pretty much repeat all of this on Friday. Disappointing. Next, Fever Pitch by Nick Hornby is about his obsession with the Arsenal football team. Which is your favorite sports team? This is a bit tricky for me. I'm not the biggest sports fan, and I never have been. Although I've come in the last decade or so to really appreciate sports a lot more than I have. And I've come to, as much as I resisted it, I've come to be a bit geographic in my fandom. And so my favorite sports team is the Dallas Cowboys of the American Football League. Yes, I know it's a glutton for punishment, I guess, because particularly if you watch First Take with Stephen A. Smith, he loves to troll the Cowboys and Cowboys fans. Ooh, does he? But then again, I guess that's part of the fun, is the trolling too. But I would say it's the Dallas Cowboys. I'm also kind of fond-ish, although a lot of that fondness has evaporated in the last few years with, or towards the Houston Texans, because they are a dumpster fire of an organization. Maybe they're getting out of it, but we shall see. So I guess I would say the Dallas Cowboys is my favorite my favorite sports team. Although I would like to get the time to watch and engage in more sports, but yeah. Next is Bridget Jones's Diary. Is a wonderful romantic comedy set in London. Which is your favorite romantic comedy? I don't know. I don't really do romantic comedies. Nothing's coming to mind. So yeah. Next question. When was the last time you visited London? I've never visited London. I would love to, but I never have. And I probably never will. What was the last book you read set in London? That would be The Swimming Pool Library by Alan Hollinghurst. It's set in 1983. London is about an incredibly wealthy young gay man who basically the only thing he does is work out and have lots of sex. And the novel opens with him cruising a young man. He goes to a public restroom where one of the other men who are basically lurking there has a heart attack. The hero, the main protagonist, saves him, and that sort of propels him into an examination of this older gay man's life and what gay history was like in the decades before the main character was born. I quite like it, although it's a bit meandering. It's fun but meandering, I think. And finally, who do I tag? I tag everybody. I don't, unless I'm making an original tag, I usually try to pretty much tag everybody. So if you like the sound of this tag, and if you would like to do this tag, consider yourselves tagged, and I will see you tomorrow with another video, probably another tag video, although I might come up with something else. So until tomorrow, Booktube, thank you, have a great afternoon, and stay safe.